Good evening, PHS. It's Flo, and welcome back to Go Knuckle Talk with Flo. And of course, I have my famous, awesome co-host Lisa Nolan Hafner. Hey, Lisa.
Hi, Michael.
So I recognize this man.
I know.
You're
We are
going
so
in.
excited to have an encore guest, Mr. Danny Andrews. We are graced with your presence this evening, and thank you again for joining us.
Thank you. Yeah, honored to get to be back on with you guys.
Yeah, and I love that shirt you're wearing.
Yeah, I just
Well, yeah,
noticed it.
that's my only Plainview shirt, so I just put it back on for this special occasion.
That's what perfect.
I was in I was in New York about 10 years ago, and I had this shirt on, and young lady at the counter at the hotel said, "Did you go to Plainview High School?" And I said, "Yes, but that was in Plainview, Texas, not Plainview, New York."
Oh yeah, there's a Plan B in New York. That's
Right.
correct.
Yes.
Well, Mr. Andrews, the Hall of Honor. What?
Yeah.
Let's get into this. How did it come about?
Well, I've been thinking about it for several years. In fact, back in 2007, when we had the group to uh, name Bulldog Stadium for Greg Sherwood, one of the charges was to start a Hall of Honor, and we just had some problems getting some traction going. And so I thought, 3 years ago when I was 72, I thought, hey, if this is ever going to happen, I better get after it while I still got the health and while I still have an interest. So I put together a group of people that I felt was a fairly good cross section of folks that had been around a while that would know people that were, maybe around in the 40s and 50s, and then certainly going forward from there. And try to get a few ladies on the group and just try to have a good mix. But I really didn't set any great parameters that said, okay, you had to play college ball, or you had to be a, a, a great superstar in high school, though you would assume that everybody had pretty good credentials. But I tried to make it as little involved as possible in trying to make the selection. So we just put together a pretty good long list of people we could think about, ask others to make other nominations, and those are still open. We still have about 150 names on the list, and I'm sure there's other people we've forgotten about or nobody is nominated yet. So the invitation is always open. If you know of someone, send us the name, send me the name, and they may already be on the list. If they're not, we'll put them on the list.
Okay. These people, I know we were not going to mention their names, but what's mostly their background? Are they teachers? Are they the
No,
athlete?
well, let's see. I was trying to think. They really come from all walks of life now. They, of course, the majority of them were athletes or coaches in the past. Some just fans who have been around a long time. So it's a pretty good mix there of folks. And again, tried to get some folks on there a little older that would have remembered people back in, the earlier days of maybe even the 40s, where their memories were of outstanding athletes. For example, someone like Laverne Roach, who, Laverne Roach died in 1950, but a great boxer. In fact,
Right.
he was Rookie of the Year by Ring Magazine in 1947, and they thought he might be the eventual middleweight champion of the world, and didn't never made it. And of course, died in the ring in 1950 in a televised. It was being televised by ABC, and he was making a comeback. He had fought. I think this was his third fight of a comeback. He laid out about a year or so and came back to Plainview and worked after losing to Marcel Cerdan, who was the middleweight champion of the world, and got knocked out in Madison Square Garden. I think he went down about 7 times. And so he stayed out a while, tried to make a comeback, and then a guy named Georgie Small, he was fighting at the Madison Square Garden, or one of the rings up there in that area, and suffered some um, irrevocable damage and died on his birthday the next day, as a matter of fact.
Wow.
Oh,
In fact, he's one of the
wow.
first people who were buried in the new section of the cemetery in Plainview, over on the west side of the cemetery.
Okay.
Wow, that's a story of Laverne Roach I'd never heard.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't realize it was a boxer either. I didn't know that.
Yeah. So, and most of the athletes were, either football, basketball, some of the major, sports we all know about. But anyway, he was one of the rare ones in that situation.
So this, you said you started this in 2002? I'm sorry,
22. Yeah.
22. Oh,
This is
okay.
just the third year. And
Right.
so, of course, we had that first group with Willie Inslee and Ronnie Parrott and Alicia Robertson and Danny Wren, Coach Danny Wren, and of course, unfortunately, several of the people have passed away. We had that first group. Had Jamar Wall, Lawrence McCutcheon, Jerry Sizemore, and Bill Houghton, all professional football players. And fortunately, none of them were able to attend, and so that's been a little disappointing these first 2 years. We've only been able to have about 4 or 5 come back. And of course, if you're honoring people that are deceased, then you obviously are going to cut down the number of folks who'll be attending.
Correct.
Maybe some of their families that are around
Yes.
can attend.
Yes, we've had representation there, and or by, for example, Bill Houghton was represented by Dr. Stuart Webb, who knew him and was in school several years after, but he knew Bill, and so that was a situation where an individual represented one of the honorees.
So Danny, I want to get clarification. So the Hall of Honor, is it limited to just athletes, or?
Yes, I've thought also it would be wonderful if we had a Plainview High School Hall of Honor, or whatever you call it. Pampa has one. We went to Hope English and I, who was a colleague at Wayland and also was a longtime teacher in the Plainview School District. She and I went up to Pampa because one of our Wayland graduates was being honored about 7 or 8 years ago, and they honor 2 people a year. And we've had some tremendous guys. I think about one of my classmates, Richard Gaynor, is a world-class AIDS researcher and COVID researcher, I think. And so there have been some people from Plainview that have achieved some prestigious kind of situation. But that's something I did not pursue. Not that it couldn't be pursued, but it certainly would be very worthy. But this was just focused on athletes.
Okay, I just wanted that for my clarification for myself and also for
Right.
our viewers out there.
Right.
So, did I hear you say that there really isn't a specific criteria to be inducted into the Hall of Honor?
No. What we have, we have this long list of athletes, and we just asked the committee, about 17 on the committee, to just go through and rank their top 10. And that's how we've been able to pick them the first 2 years. There's been some discussion about perhaps reducing the number. Some people would argue to say, if you have too many in there, then it looks like it's not as a great an honor as if there's only 2 or 3. The other side says if you're starting a new project like this, if you don't honor quite a few right off the bat, it's going to take you a long time to ever get a fairly representative class, because it would just take you forever. There's too many good athletes and too few years to get them in.
Right.
Okay.
And so how many people are on the committee?
I think we have 17.
Okay.
And we've not tried to disclose. We're not trying to be secretive, but we've not talked about who's on there, because we don't want to really put pressure on somebody. And I don't think there would be necessarily pressure, but we just said, look, if you're interested in nominating somebody, send it to me and I'll get them on the list. And again, we've got a very representative, a great list, but there's always a chance that there'd be somebody that really ought to be on there that you, for whatever reason, you just didn't think about. I didn't sit down and go through every yearbook or whatever you're trying to say, oh, that guy ought to be on there, or that gal ought to be on there. So, and of course, Plainview High School didn't have multiple sports for young ladies until, I guess, around 1980, when they first started introducing basketball and track and those kind of things. So for a long time, it was just tennis. It was about the only thing that girls were offered. I had some neighborhood kids I wrote about the other day that we had 2 young ladies, Patty Purcell and Dale DeVette. Patty would have been a graduate of 68, Dale of 66, I think. They would have probably been great high school athletes, but they just didn't have an opportunity, except unless they played tennis, which neither one of them did.
They were in school prior to Title IX.
Yeah, way ahead of Title IX.
Mm-hmm.
That's
You know,
cool.
speaking of Title IX, you know, I went back and looked when I was at home last year, and to see if what I may have written about Title IX. I think I was so naive about it, and the fact that the Wayland Flying Queens had always been playing, to say, well, that ain't no big deal. You know, we had Title IX before Title IX existed, but obviously it was more involved than just women's basketball or tennis or the sports that Wayland offered at the time.
Right, right. So do the inductees receive anything?
Well, we give them a profile that's a little more extensive than what is in the program, and a couple of 3 pictures, and then they receive a medal. There's people in town who I walked in the medal shop one day, and they had a real nice depiction of a bulldog. So they get their name with the Plainview High School Athletic Hall of Honor, what year they're inducted, and their name, and then some programs. And but there's no. I think someone asked me before, said, "Is there any financial remuneration out of this?" And I said, "Absolutely not."
Not.
Yeah. But I was tickled. You know, I got on the phone 2 years ago and stayed on the phone one Friday afternoon and maybe part of the next Monday, and raised $10,000 or $12,000 to get the project started. And we've got enough money to kind of carry us through this year, 3 years, and then I'll have to go back and raise some more money. So the appeal is always out there. If you feel led to say, hey, I believe in this project, and I want to give some money, and we've had some very, very generous donors. You know, some people have given a little bit, and that's great, and some have given quite a bit because they think, hey, this is worthy, and I want to be a part of that.
That's
I think you touched a little bit in this. Are you guys going to try to get like a Hall of Honor building or?
No, that'd be pretty ambitious. You know, speaking of that, a couple of years ago, I say a couple of years ago, maybe going back 10 years ago, we discussed, there was some discussion about creating a museum for West Texas women's basketball, and that would be possibly added on to Hutcherson Center where the Flying Queens and the Wayland Pioneers play. But we never could get, you know, I would, there was not a great push, but there was some discussion about doing that. But it would have been, you know, we probably over $500,000 then to get it built. Then, you know, somebody's got to staff it and be around. And, you know, with Nazareth, particularly in Canyon, having such tremendous success in basketball, that would have been a great start. So, but to answer your question, no, that, you know, it's not that ambitious. The display, for a lot of people who don't even know, is in the newer part of the what it's called now, Plainview Junior High, the old Estacado Junior High. And there's a nice entryway, which is right directly behind the old field house at the stadium. But, you know, it'd be great to have it at the high school. But the idea was to say, hey, fans, you can come over and take a look at that and take pictures and what have you. And it would be pretty convenient. But so far, very few people have taken advantage of that, unfortunately. So, again, it would be nice to have it at the high school more logically, probably. But I don't know if we'll wind up moving it up there.
Well, I'm
That'd be
hoping
cool if
that,
you could put some. Well, go ahead, Lisa.
I'm just saying that I'm hoping that by having you on and you talking about this, that more people will become aware and that this will grow legs, you know, that your project will grow legs. And
yeah, and you know, there's several things that play into it here, guys. One is that let's just say that a lot of your honorees come from, say, the 60s and 70s. There's a lot of people in Plainview don't even know those people. I mean, the names aren't even familiar to them, much less their exploits.
right.
And so, you know, if you had a number of people that were being honored who, say, got out of school 10 years ago, and you know, and the population has changed, and so there is that's always the challenge of saying, hey, that's nice, but I don't know these people, or I never saw them play. And that's one deal of me being nearly 76 years old to say, I've been around since the 60s, you know, to see these people play and had known them personally for the most part. And so you just, those are some of the challenges too. The people say, well, that's nice, but I don't really know them. So,
Yeah.
you know.
But it is good in my opinion to have 50s, 60s because there's still people that are still alive though, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
and you want to honor them while they're still living.
that's
Because you
true.
wait too long,
That-
they're not gonna be around.
well, and as I said before, we've honored about I think 9 or 10 people now so far that are deceased, and certainly were worthy. And for example, and by the way, this year there'll be 2 celebrations. One, this September 13th, the first home football game at halftime, and then there'll be another one probably in January at a halftime of a basketball doubleheader. And the reason for that is that we decided to honor the 1987 girls basketball state champions, the first UIL state champions in school history in any sport. And Kathy Harston, who was the coach of that team, and Ramona Black, who was a star, were all inducted. Were all voted in this year, along with Hazel Roberts, who was an incredible track star at Plainview High School and then at Prairie View A&M, and Bill Phillips, who's deceased. And of course, Bill coached Plainview back in the 60s and 70s, or late 60s, early 70s, and went on to coach at Western Oklahoma for 28 years. And so it's kind of interesting. I went to Bill's funeral, and there were only about 5 people from Plainview there. And I thought, well, I wonder why more people from Plainview wouldn't be here. And I thought, hey, Bill's been gone from Plainview 28 years.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
he's been deceased about 10 years. So, everything is, related to time, and the 78 football team this year, those guys are drawing Social Security now. So they're not kids anymore. And they and watching them play, it was just like yesterday. I guarantee you. Just, of course, it was the first district championship team we ever had, and it just absolutely turned the town around. The attitude and the the angry red and all that sort of thing. And so it was easy to honor those guys this year, and there'll be other teams that we'll be honoring through the years. Those 3 girls state championship teams in the early 2000s,
Mm-hmm.
and the '94 state championship boys basketball team.
So this is the first time that entire teams are being honored, then, right?
Yes. And it won't happen every year, but like the 79 team, that 78, 79 team, not only did the football team win the first district title, but that was the first year for girls to play in the University Interscholastic League. They had played in what they called the Panhandle Girls League or something for a year or so. And so that was the first year we were in UIL. And so we'll be entering, probably honoring them perhaps even next year.
Wow. Now, Kathy Halston,
Harston, Harston.
She left Plainview to go to UT, correct?
She played at Wayland, and then she coached at UT and at University of Tennessee, not only coaching but having other responsibilities. And now Kathy is back at the University of Texas, has been down there several years. She's in charge of like 6 women's basketball programs, including the rowing team. And
Wow.
Kathy had heart transplant surgery earlier this year, not heart bypass, but heart transplant.
Wow.
So that's quite a deal. And of course, Ramona Black played at North Texas, and I mentioned Ms. Roberts and Bill Phillips, and then of course this year the other football honorees are Kevin Igo, who played on that 78 team, went on and was a All-American honorable mention All-American at Oklahoma State, played for Jimmy Johnson, who went on to coach the Dallas Cowboys. Rod Inslee, whose brother Willie was in that first class, and Rod was a tremendous football and basketball player. He scored 52 points against Hobbs for the school record as a sophomore. And then Tabor Benner, who had a great career, is only 3-time All-State football player in Plainview High School history. Went on to have a good 2 years at Abilene Christian before he got hurt. And then Tommy McMillan, who was so involved in the summer baseball program for many, many years and umpired in 4 Bambino World Series. And then Tim Sun, who won the state championship in the 440 in 1972. Tommy's a 72 graduate as well. And then Tim went on to have a great career at Baylor. So those are the honorees this year. And as I say, there's some other great ones you probably name off the top of your head to say that those. What about these guys? Well, they're on the list, and hopefully they'll all get in at some point. I may be long dead before that happens, but hope to all get in.
Now, that's the list, because you said the list is really big and extensive, and so how do y'all narrow it down?
Well, they just go through I send it out to everyone on the voting list, and they just go down and pick out their top 10.
Okay, and then it's narrowed here. So okay.
Yeah, and so far, like we had 11 because the voting was so close last year. So we may go back and say, hey, it's time that we cut it down to the top 6 or whatever. It's fairly arbitrary. Again, there's no real hard and fast rules, and so next year we might say, hey, there's 15 here. Well, I don't think that'll happen, but if you're introducing them at halftime of a football game, you've only got so much time, or basketball games as the case may be this year. So you can't go out and have a tremendous amount of folks, but we've had 10 the first year and 11 the second year.
Okay, and so once there's going to be a plaque at the building at Estacado.
Yeah, there's a wonderful display at the junior high there, and they're all put up right now. They're all in alphabetical order, but we may not continue that because that may be a difficult deal for the company that comes in and puts those up. But there's a plaque in the middle that includes everybody's name, and there's probably, I don't know, 80 spaces on there for that. We eventually may have to run out of space. You may have to get down on your hands and knees to see down on the bottom of the wall. But anyway, it's a neat display, and it's well done, I think, and attractive. And so we just encourage people as they have opportunity. And certainly the reception is open to the public. It'll be from 4:30 to 6 o'clock there in that same display area, and people are certainly welcome to come and renew old acquaintances with the athletes or look at the display. So and we had it open for a little while after the first year, but so few people showed up. I don't think we tried to do that last year, but we may do it again.
Well, I want to go back to the committee. What's the age range? I mean, from like 70s to
the oldest one on the committee is 80, probably 3 or 4 now, and I'm thinking, about 84, and the youngest one would be probably in their early 50s.
Because eventually you guys gonna have to shift it to some of the 30 and 40-year-olds, I guess.
Yeah,
I'm guessing. So.
Yeah, and because again, you have to be old enough to have some sense of history of Plainview High School. Otherwise, there's just names to you that don't mean anything. I mean, you can look at it and say, and there's not a lot of. Honestly, there's not a lot of. I don't have this great biography on everybody. I tried to list, some accolades as best I could remember, and so you are at some degree at the I hate to see the word the mercy, but the memory bank of voters who say, oh gosh, man, I remember Joe Smith, and he was a great player back in 74 or 83 or whatever. So, but just like Michael Flores was a baseball player, and they say, oh gosh, well, why ain't Michael Flores on there? He was a 3-time All-District guy.
Yeah, I like that.
He was a legend in his own mind.
Yes, I was.
Michael, I will be to nominate you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
I cheerleaders need to be on there too. So.
Yeah. I think I'm still.
That's another thought. We had some great cheerleaders when I was in school, and I thought, okay, I'd put mine up against anybody, but that might not happen. I don't know.
In my JV, when I was a sophomore, before I moved up to varsity against Coronado, we went 11 innings. I struck out 25 players out of 33 outs. My opposing pitcher struck out about 18 or 19.
Well, that's it, and that's a classic case, Michael, of saying, is there uh, is there somebody who would remember Michael Flores doing that to say, what did he do when he was he got on the varsity and he wasn't very good? I'm being facetious here, to say, did somebody nominate or somebody remembers and say, hey, this guy's pretty good. He needs to be considered, because your memory can be, for mine, it might be, I remember a lot of stuff that might have happened in the 60s and 70s and not be so conversant about who was around in the 80s and 90s. Even though I was in town, I may not have been as, attuned to some of the athletes that probably ought to be on that list. So that's why I say, if there's anybody out there to say, hey, have you considered so-and-so? Say, yeah, hey, we got them on the list, or hey, no, let me put them on there.
No, I don't. I mean, I'm fun. I don't think I deserve on that list, but maybe it's on the 82, but anyway, it is in one of our annuals how many people I struck out. So it is printed. It's printed.
And hang on to that, man, because
I will.
We have grandchildren one of these days, and they'll be saying, "Grandpa, did you ever do anything?" Well, yeah, I was struck out. And they'll roll their eyes and say, "Yeah, I bet that's right." And you got there something to prove.
Yes, I do. And what's the bad part of it? We lost 3-2.
Yeah, that's pretty bad. Yeah.
So why why do you think it was so important to start the Hall of Honor?
Oh,
What's your
I don't
opinion?
know.
I mean, why?
I don't know if it was so important, but I just felt like, hey, there ought to be some recognition for athletes. And a lot of other schools have it. I have a friend, a preacher friend who lives in Temple now, or Belton, and when he was in Mineral Wells, he started the Mineral Wells Hall of Fame. Well, when he moved to pastor the First Baptist Church of San Angelo, somebody found out about that and said, "Would you help us start a Hall of Fame here?" And he did, and there was somebody backing him, and it went about 4 years, and then for some reason somebody lost interest, and then I think he moved to another town. And that's the same way here. I have to say, is there anybody that if I were to become ill or die or whatever, that says, hey, what happened? Well, that lasted about 4 or 5 years, and Andrew's keeled over. He's pushing up daisies now, and does anybody want to, have even the interest to do it? And that's, my advantage is that I have a good memory, and I really thought I was going to have to do a lot more research this year. It turned out that we still have quite a bit of information. And if the athlete themselves who are nominated say, hey, my mother kept a scrapbook, I can tell you everything I did, it certainly helps, that you don't have to go back in the old dusty files at the Herald or whatever, to find the information you need. And fortunately, I was able last year to go back and find some information. But if you're having to look through dusty files, you just have to go down to the old building and pull those down off the rack and thumb through them and see what you can find. And we have those bound volumes are invaluable, but you still got to know where you're looking for.
Right. Well, Danny, I have to disagree on something. You don't have a good memory. You have an exceptional memory. Every time I hear you talk, I'm like, I want to know what you're taking. Like, you have an encyclopedic memory. It's unbelievable.
It's like Tom Hall when we do football. Like Royce Coleman or somebody break a long touchdown run. I said, that's the third longest run in Plainview High School history. Of course, we had a book at the Herald. I may have talked about this the last time. We kept stats, and my brother and another guy spent most of the summer of 1966, I think, going through files at the Herald and getting incredible football records. Well, I got a new sports editor, and I heard him talk. He and one of my reporters talking about this blue book, and they said, "Be careful what you throw away because they're big on statistics." I heard him talking. I should have got up out of my seat, gone out to the newsroom, and said, "Let me have that blue book." He threw it away. Threw it away. And we were scribbling. That's when Jamar Wall was playing. We were scribbling, his stuff in the book. And I thought, one of these days I'll have somebody retype it. Well, it's gone now, and it's been gone for 15 years. So anyway, all of that aside, I would say stuff like, that's the third longest run in Plainview High School history. Tom Hall was doing the play-by-play, and he'd look down at me and he'd say, how do you know that? He said, I don't even have a frame of reference to challenge. I said, I don't know. It's in the record book, and I remember.
Well,
Well,
and it
let me bring up something before we forget it. I talked to Michael. Bill Davis passed away last week. Bill Davis was the football coach in Plainview from '68 to '71, and we were 7-2, 7-3, 7-2-1, 2-8 in 1970, and then 7-3 in '71. We go to Hereford, and again, I may have mentioned this in the previous deal, but we go to Hereford. If we win at Hereford, we will go to the playoffs for the first time in school history. And we've been playing football since 1910. And we were leading 7-6 with 4.5 minutes to go on an incredibly muddy field. I mean, the band played and their shoes came off, I think. And there's so much mud out there. And it was foggy. It was literally, they stopped the game about 4 times to measure because they couldn't see, the referees could not see from midfield hardly to the sideline. And when I tell that story, I think people are probably thinking I'm making that up. We call it the bog in the fog. And anyway, Hereford comes back and beats us with 28 seconds left, and I think somebody told Bill Plainview is snake bit. They can't win, and I think it might have convinced Bill that maybe they're right, and he went on down to LD Bell High School at Hearst and coached about 5 more years before he got out of the business. But passed away last week. Great guy, and and he probably should have been the coach who won the first district championship, but it didn't happen.
28 seconds. Huh?
It absolutely was like an absolute knife in you because you thought we're finally going to do it. And what's sad too is we came back the next two games. I believe were Coronado or Lubbock High, and Kermit, which was coached at that time by Greg Sherwood, and we beat both of them 34-0. So you think we were just getting ready to go to the playoffs, with 2 more games to go, and that game, I think Hereford won the district that year, Monterey. So it was terrible.
Wow. I can
Yeah,
just how demoralizing that must have been.
It was, and when y'all were in school, when Coach Sherwood was here, we went to playoffs first year in '78. We went again in '80 and '83, I believe, '84 and '85 or something. I think we went 4 or 5 times. So it was fun. We were winning regularly and getting to go to the playoffs and had those big rivalries with Hereford, and so it was a great time.
Yes,
that's
it was.
good. Now, I did ask you, and you kind of answered on the email, but I'll ask it. Have you ever, during the ceremony, got a little emotional or excited, or I mean?
Well, I always get excited, but I've got a script and I've got to concentrate on it to get it done within that time that we've got to honor them at halftime. And the referees have always been gracious to give us a little extra time because it's also senior night, and so of course those guys are recognized before the game, but we have to kind of hustle at the half to get that all in, and it'll be a little shorter this year because we only are going to recognize 6 people, or the team and 5 people. And I don't know how many of those 78 guys are coming back. It doesn't look like a huge number. And there was probably about 40 or 45 kids on the team. And, some of them haven't heard yet, probably. And I say kids, they're old men now like me. But they, we haven't had a huge response, but they'll be tickled to come back. And we'll have a little memento to give to each one of them that happens to come back. And then if somebody writes to me, we can mail them one probably.
Okay, well, hopefully more players will decide to attend after.
Yeah, maybe they'll see this but Scott Sherwood, who is on that team, is a quarterback, and several other players have been trying to get the word out to everybody. But not everybody does social media, and somebody's just not going to get the word. It's just how it goes with life.
Well, let me ask you this. Besides that Scott Sherwood and Jay Miller, some of the guys you've probably seen in the last 40 45 years, is there any athletes on that team that you have not seen since high school and you're like a little excited to see like someone like maybe an Irvin Davis
Yeah,
or
see, I've
Kenneth
not,
Story.
yeah, I've not seen any of those guys. I'm just trying to think. Of course, Scott Sherwood, I have seen. Um, Anthony Adcox is coming back, um, and I did a story on him one time. I remember, but all those guys, I couldn't tell you where they live now. So very few live in Plainview. Kevin Igo, of course, lives in Plainview, but I don't know. I couldn't tell you off the top of my head anybody else who still lives there. But that team had uh, Royce Coleman had 1,600 yards. Irvin Davis had about 1,100 yards rushing, and Billy Williams had 800. So you talk about a triple threat there. And I always said, I could have coached that team, as good a good talent as they had, And who knows, George Kirk, if he'd stayed around, he might have won a state championship or got as far as Greg Sherwood. But he chose to go down to Houston and left us some great athletes. Bruce Wesley, I was thinking about Bruce today. Bruce is a pastor down in the Houston area, and I haven't seen Bruce, I don't guess, I might have seen him one time in the last 45 years. So, we all go our separate ways, and I didn't realize till the other day that I was the PA announcer. I knew I was the PA announcer for a little while after I got out of sports. Well, I was a PA announcer, I guess, that season because I saw the all-district team, and one of the all-district linebackers was Danny Andrews from Lubbock High School. So the night we played Lubbock High, I was calling his name because he's making all the tackles. I went down on the field after the game and said, "Young man, I want to have my picture made with you because I don't know too many other Danny Andrewses."
Great story.
Yeah.
Well, you know, after the ceremony, has any of the inductees come and just of course, thanked you and the committee? But do they mention? Have any of them mentioned how it means a lot to them? I mean, can you share
Yeah,
any of those stories?
I think sometimes they get so caught up in meeting, seeing other people and everything. But yeah, they've been gracious, and I remember Ramona Teal, who is the daughter of Carl Earlbeck. She was just so thrilled, and of course her mother wanted to be sure and be there. And we were fortunate to have a gator that could take Ms. Earlbeck out to the middle of the field, so she didn't have to walk out there because she has some trouble walking. So yeah, there's several have been gracious about that, and I know everybody's excited. I mean, how many people get in any kind of Hall of Honor or Hall of Fame in their lifetime, and so it's quite a deal. And I think it means more to you the more you get away from it, Or I mean, initially there's an excitement, I think, but as you look back, when you're now, some of them are, well, those old guys are 65, but some of them a little younger, as they get older, to say, hey, let me show you something that I've got in here on the wall, is that display, this frame display of what some of my accolades were, and I still have the medal that they gave me put around my neck, and here's a program that's got some more information in it. So it's all really neat, and it's very. I like it. I enjoy doing it, and hope to do it as long as my health is good.
Well,
And my memory is decent, Lisa.
yes, I think it's a really great legacy for people. And so, in that vein, in the few years that you've done this, are there any like heartwarming stories from the community or from inductees? Anything that's really heartwarming and unique that really stands out for you?
Oh, I just think, again, with the Ramona last year, they seem to be so thrilled that their daddy, Carl Earlbeck, who coached us to the state championship, and in his last season, he was going to retire. But Carl didn't know how to retire. He went back and coached at Monterey. He coached over at Hart 4 or 5 years. He coached at Plainview Christian, coached them to a state championship in basketball or volleyball, maybe. Anyway, but Carl thought that was going to be kind of the end of his career. It wasn't Plainview. He had decided to retire. So that was a great story in itself. I have a video after the state championship, and it was very heartwarming. But Ramona they seemed so excited about their daddy getting to be in the Hall of Honor, and there have been several others like that they're appreciative, and nobody's falling down and bawling or anything of that nature, but I think they're all still pretty excited, to say, hey, somebody still remembers me after all these years.
Okay. Well, here's a unique question. So
Yeah.
this is in regards to the 78 team.
Yeah.
Because there are a few players that are deceased.
Uh-huh.
Well, will their families receive that player's
Yeah, if they let me know. And again, see, we've had such little response right now. Maybe 7, 8, 10 players out of that whole group have indicated that they're coming. They may still show up. We've got 2 more weeks. But yes, if somebody writes, say, "Gosh, I'm sorry, my my son couldn't come, or my dad's deceased," yes, we'll send them
okay.
one of the. It won't be framed, but it'll be something they can use as a keepsake.
Now,
Okay.
juniors and sophomores, if any freshmen played, they could attend this as well, as long as they played on the 78 team.
Oh,
Is
yeah.
that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think there were any freshmen on that team. There probably were just a few sophomores. That was still back in the days when you didn't see a lot of sophomores, even on a varsity football team. But, we're hoping that a few more will show up. And again, sometimes, guys, I used to frustrate over Wayland homecoming, let's say. Why don't more people come back? Well, the older you get, your kids are playing football on Friday night.
Mhm.
I can't go because my son's playing football. I can't walk anymore, or I've just had cancer, or I've got a job I can't take off. So there's or that, and say at the Wayland homecoming, to say I've got to spend the night in a hotel for 2 or 3 nights. I don't have the resources to do that. So there's all kinds of reasons why people might not come back to any given thing. They might really want to say, "Gosh, do I want to drive all the way from Houston to back to Plainview?" I'd like to be there, but I don't think I'll go. Now they may regret it after the fact, but that's just the nature of how we operate. And
Sure.
I think the older you get, the more impediments are out there to keep you from coming back to something you really like to do.
I agree. I completely agree. I mean, that happens with reunions and, like you said, homecoming, anything involving, going back to.
Well, this is totally an aside, but I have lost, I think, 165 friends since January 2022. Now, living in Plainview,
Wow.
my almost 68 years, and being in the newspaper business, and knowing, I always thought I knew everybody in town, and I'd get out in the grocery store and didn't know anybody. But I haven't gone back to every funeral. Would I like to be there? And if I were in Plainview, would I attend? Probably would have. But it's a 5.5 hour trip, and honestly, like I said, the scenery never changes. and it's not terrible, but it's, you say, do I want to drive 5.5 hours back for a funeral? As much as I like the people, I might not do that. So again, I wish everybody that was being honored, including all the guys who are still living from the 78 team, could come, but it's just a fact of life. They're not going to.
Are you guys going to try to do any live stream during the ceremony?
Those are done by the school district. They're on YouTube, I believe. So yeah, they can watch it that way. We haven't really promoted that, but we should, because that's
Right.
people who I need to double check that, but I'm pretty sure that the school district is if they're not live streaming it, they're YouTubing it, however that goes, where you see it after the fact.
Well, that would be good for the players and families that are unable to attend. At least they'll get to see it.
Right. Yeah, and we have a guy that Steve Gant there in Plainview takes pictures for me, and so we have those available if somebody wants a picture from somebody being honored. So anyway, that's again, that's hasn't been real sophisticated, any of that kind of stuff. We haven't done these video tributes and tried to capture it on video. I'll probably regret that one of these days. In fact, I still regret 1983. We honored Jerry Sizemore, who was playing for the Philadelphia Eagles. Lawrence McCutcheon, who was playing for the Los Angeles Rams or had been playing for the Rams. I think he was in Buffalo at the time. And Arlen Thompson, who played for several teams. And we had a night with the pros at the high school. Dick Vermeil, who was the coach of the Philadelphia Eagles, came and was the speaker. And I wasn't smart enough to videotape it, for history.
Yeah.
Good grief, why didn't I have it videotaped that night? So,
Well, let me ask you this, because we've had other shows like recently. We had a class of '82, and we asked them if you had your smartphone back then, what play, football, basketball, whatever, what would have been an amazing play that you wish you would have captured on video on your phone?
I can think of three off top. Fortunately, we have the two pictures that are framed at the high school gymnasium, and that's Paul Aday hitting the winning bucket on the televised game against Lubbock High in '64. Lubbock High should have won the game. They should have thrown the ball in the backcourt in the last 5 seconds. Guy decides to throw across the court. We intercept the pass, throw it down into the basket, hit the winning bucket at the buzzer, and beat Lubbock High, and went on to play in the by district down at Fort Worth. That's how things were spread out. 60 years ago, you had to go to Fort Worth to play by district. Okay, the other one would be I'd love to have the watching Rob Bass hit the winning shot at the buzzer against Austin Anderson to win the state championship in '94. But as far as one exciting play, Bobby Reyes. It looks like Monterey is going to lead 14-0 at the half in Lubbock, 79. And they throw a ball in the end zone, and Bobby Reyes intercepts it 8 yards deep in the end zone, runs it all the way back for a touchdown.
Oh, wow.
It goes down the east sideline and dives into the end zone. I think he was exhausted from running 108 yards. And I saw him at the YMCA years ago, and he said, "Do you remember me?" And I looked at him and I said, "Gosh, I'm sorry, I don't." He said, "I'm Bobby Reyes." I said, 108 yards against Monterey. So, and then, in '79, it looked like we were going to lose the last game of the season against Hereford. Irvin Davis is being chased toward the press box side. He turns around, throws the ball back to the quarterback in the middle of the field, and he goes 56 yards to beat Hereford on the last play of the game. So that was those are all pretty exciting.
Well, I'm gonna ask Lisa. We should go to the January ceremony because a few months ago I posted I would love to interview or have the '87 girls on our show, and we got a little feedback, but it kind of died. So we should go there and try to, hey, they're there, and then ask them to join to be on our show. Plus, we could promote our podcast in Plainview.
I had not talked to Ramona Black. In fact, I didn't know Ramona all that well back in '87, but Joey Hodgson is Dr. Stuart Webb's daughter, and she's stayed up. In fact, they had a little reunion 2007 of that team in Plainview, and for the 20-year reunion, and so that'd be great. There's you just have to track those players down and get them to come on with you, and y'all do a great job of rounding up folks. I think if people knew how much fun it was, they'd be jumping through the telephone.
Yeah, exactly. I'll go ahead and say a little teaser. I'm going to talk with Robert Braddock tomorrow and Steve George. We're going to try to work out a Hereford Plainview football podcast.
Yeah.
And, and get the perspective of Hereford, because we're, like you mentioned, that was our rivals. And we would love to hear the perspective from the Hereford side on how much, they loved us or actually hated us, but I'm working on that. So
yeah, and of course Adam Nairn, old Bulldog, is the head coach up there now. So that would bring a different perspective, that he's a Bulldog now coaching Hereford.
Because I remember the class of '82, there was 4 or 5 players who were held back in the early years. Mm-hmm. So when they came their senior year, there'd be a year, older, and they did that on purpose, and they did that with Steve George too,
Yeah.
and which I'll confirm with them on the show.
Yeah.
But he was held back for that one reason as well.
Both of the Parr boys, I think, were held back a year.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that was it. I have a grandson whose birthday is August the 12th, and he's a very young senior, and he's a wrestler, and he's pretty good. I'm hoping he tore up his labrum last year after going to state as a sophomore. I'm hoping he'll get to go again, but it might have been helpful to have held him out a year, but that's water under the bridge now.
Okay. When you mentioned donations early in the show, are you getting them by making phone calls, or you guys?
I did, but I've had several people who just had heard about it and want to make a contribution, so they can go on Facebook and do a personal message, or they can. I don't mind giving out my phone number. It's 806-729-7154. My address is 11925 Belgrove. That's BELLEGROVE Road in Burleson, Texas. BURLESON 76028. If you would like to send anything, $25, $20, it doesn't make a difference. We'll put that in the pot and help fund this thing going forward. And I had a number of guys I called 2 years ago, and oh yeah, I'd like to help you, and they may have forgotten about it or whatever. So I can circle back on some of those people, but they were very gracious. Got the money raised pretty quickly, and because they like the idea, and hopefully they'll people who haven't contributed might want to do that.
Well, that's what my my part two, I guess, would be, you mentioned Facebook. So do you have a Plainview Hall of Honor Facebook?
No, I really don't. I ought to create one. I'm not, I write Facebook stories. I'm just not very good about creating stuff.
I mean, you got that. You also
could create a page. Probably ought to do that. In fact, I'm gonna make stuff a note about that right now.
May do that, or you could also, by the domain name, do a website, and that way we can direct people, and then you can have a link there where to send their money. So
good idea. Yeah, well, I need you guys to be my PR directors.
Yeah, and the website could be built, constantly be worked on to where people can start to read the histories of players that were way back in time that so that would be a place where the history of that player could be. And then I also have a suggestion. I love the website. They could pay through the website, but you should also set up maybe Venmo or Cash App, or one of those, because people now, that's how they donate. They transfer money via one of those apps, and
GoFundMe.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I'll try to do some work on that.
That's why
some of the other projects you went on, but
that's why I mentioned you need some young people in that committee. They'll do that in a heartbeat.
I'll get my granddaughter to do that. She's 14 years old. Who probably put that together in 5 minutes.
Yes.
Absolutely. Well, I hope everything goes well, and I'm pretty sure it will. So
I better remind everybody. I think my phone maybe is fixing to run out here, but let me remind everybody that this is September the 13th at halftime of the Bulldog football game, and then we'll have another one. We're still looking for a date at half between games, probably, of a basketball game to honor the other folks. So anyway, come out to the 78 football team. Kevin Igo, Tabor Minner, Rod Inslee, Tommy McMillan, Tim Sun will be honored on the 13th at Bulldog Stadium. And
everybody, please go. If you live around there, Plainview, or within 100 miles, please go and support this. I mean, this is very important to Plainview.
And the reception will be from 4:30 to 6 at the display place. That's in the junior high building right behind the old field house, if that helps you know where we are. Okay? We'll look forward to seeing you.
Absolutely. Well, real quick, if Lisa and I can't make the Hall of Honor, we've been pushing ourselves to do the Walk of Fame or Walk of Honor there.
Yeah.
So hopefully in 10 years, our show will be so famous that we can get a little star put there if that's what they do. I'm not sure. But
talk to Rodney Watson about that. Santa Claus will help you out there.
He's going to be on our show. He and Clem. We got him and Clem going to be on our show. But anyway,
it'll be great.
Thank you, Danny.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. Good night.
Have a good evening. Bye-bye. What a good show.
He has such a wealth of knowledge. It blows me away.
Absolutely. I mean, we could probably sit and for hours and hours and talk with him. And
I mean, he's like an encyclopedia. He makes me feel like I have dementia.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
seriously.
He's the modern day Wikipedia, I guess. Yeah.
Yes, I'm just and I'm in such awe of his memory bank and his recall. Oh my gosh. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's really impressive.
Yeah, I'm really serious. We should try to go in January and
Yeah.
go to that one and promote not promote our show, but I would like to have those ladies on our show. I'm not sure we could do it live, but at least we can get some information and hound
Sure.
them. So,
Yeah. We
but
could
anyway, again, guys, hey, if you live within 100 150 miles, please make it out to the game and support the local athletes.
yeah, and really support this project because it sounds like it's a real passion project for Danny, and he has put a lot of time and effort to bring this to fruition. And I think we need to support him, and this is a way to honor him and to keep this legacy going because he's really preserving history and honoring history in Plainview, via our athletes, you know, past, present, and in the future. And so we want to keep this going. And I think it's a very worthy and worthwhile project. And I'm really excited and just really grateful that he's done this. So everybody step up to the plate. If you can't make
Yes.
an event, then at least consider donating. $5 is enough. If enough people contribute $5, it's going to be significant. So any amount that you can contribute to this project, please consider doing so.
And I'll text Danny tonight to give him his information again and who to write it out to, and that way I can add it to the video on the bottom.
Yes, for sure.
But anyway, hey, another good show. And next week, who do we have next week? Is it the Fun Bunch?
I thought that was the week after.
Oops. Sorry, guys. We've done about, I think this is our 27th show that we've done.
Wow, really?
I think so. I believe we have. And let me look, see if I can find it in the calendar. I don't know if I get it on here or not. What's next week? The 3rd?
Yes.
Yep, I have it. Next week will be the Rifle Corps, the band Rifle Corps of.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. So ladies, we're excited to have y'all on. And so we got to start working on questions for them.
Yes,
And
finally, more girls on the show.
yes. And let's get together Thursday and come up with questions, and I'll text them. Actually, I'll make sure to text tonight and then remind them. We'll get ready for next week. So anyway, well, good night, Miss Lisa.
Good night. Thank you, everyone, for joining us.
Yes.
Appreciate
Peace
it.
and love. Peace and love.